traditional chief marketing officer as more and more marketing budget is shifting online and more people are embracing content marketing as the definitive strategy. You're starting to see positions like a chief content officer and a chief listening officer, and even people that are called channel masters, return on objective chief, that's an interesting ROO, director of audience, a first responder. So this would be in a really large organization, but these positions exist today. I looked on LinkedIn for chief content officer, and just in my network, I found 750 results. And this is the job trend for that position, chief content officer. If you look at simplyhire.com, it's going up and to the right. So this is a legitimate career path now, chief content officer, chief listening officer. What do these people actually do? It looks complicated, and it looks like actually at the 10,000 foot level, it's an enormous amount of work. And actually it is. It's a lot of work. And is it worth it? Because there's other things you can do. You can do paid advertising, and in a lot of ways that's easier. I argue that it's absolutely worth it when you consider a long-term return on investment. And that long-term is minimum 12 months. I think it's a year. If you're willing to invest in this strategy for a year, I believe it has the highest return on investment in any form of marketing, online or offline. If you look at pay-per-click marketing gives you a pretty immediate return on investment. It's manageable. You can even engineer in a way you can engineer your profits. But at some point, it hits a plateau, hits a ceiling, and over time, it gets more competitive, and you have to struggle just to maintain a certain level of return on investment. Now let's look at SEO, search engine optimization, but we're going to consider this the old ways of doing search engine optimization, which are manipulative link building, low quality content, things like blog comment spamming. This type of stuff did work up until about a year or a year and a half ago, and now this type of activity is becoming harshly penalized by Google. If you're familiar with the Google Panda update, or the Google Penguin update, which is due for another big reset coming up this summer, websites that have done this in the past, low quality link building, black hat type of SEO, they're getting slammed, they're getting torched. So this kind of ROI is gone. It's just gone. What's left is content marketing. And content marketing, as I said, it yields the highest long-term 12-month plus return on investment. But those first 6 or 8 months could be kind of tough because you're making an upfront investment. And during that time when you could also be doing pay-per-click marketing, you'll start to wonder, is this really worth it? But then there comes a point, somewhere here, where you've accumulated a critical mass of social audience and content. And then at that point, the results start coming very quickly. And this is what I refer to as the tipping point. Let's actually just drill into pay-per-click versus content marketing. Pay-per-click marketing is actually renting an audience. And content marketing is owning an audience that you create. So if we use an analogy of home ownership, this is almost like a classic rent versus buy equation. You can rent, and it might be a little bit cheaper in the short term, but you're not building equity into a piece of property. The same thing is true with content marketing. If you invest in creating your own assets, your own digital assets, and you use those assets to create an audience, then you have full ownership over those assets, you will have full ownership over that audience, and that audience can deliver for you for the long term in a much greater way than the so-called rented media of pay-per-click. So I want to return to this concept of tipping points. And the tipping point is where you've reached that critical mass, you've put in the hard work, you've now gotten a lot of content published, you've increased your audience size, and you start to see suddenly an exponential rise in the results. The results being the traffic to your website and the number of leads or the number of sales that you're getting to your website. And there was a study done by HubSpot recently. They surveyed 7,000 businesses, and these are their customers. And they were trying to identify, where is this tipping point? At what point do these companies start really reaping the benefits of this strategy? And they looked at a few different aspects. The first is they looked at the overall amount of website content, the number of pages on a website. And what they found was when you hit somewhere between the range of 400 to 1,000 unique pages on your website, you reach this tipping point. Your inbound traffic and your inbound leads started to rise dramatically. Number of blog articles, and this is a monthly blog posts. If you're publishing between 9 to 15 blog posts per month, which is somewhere between 2 to 4 times per week, this is the tipping point. That is the level of frequency where you have a chance to reach this tipping point. And you can see it's pretty dramatic, actually. How about the number of total published articles? The tipping point in this case is between 50 to 100 blog posts. So the quicker you can get to, let's say, 100 blog posts, you could expect to hit this tipping point where you start seeing those type of results to your traffic and to your leads. Facebook, the tipping point for Facebook is between 500 to 1,000 fans or likes on your Facebook page. And for Twitter, it's a little bit lower. It's between 2 to 500 Twitter followers. And keep in mind, this is not data for Bulgaria. This is data probably most heavily influenced by their US customer base. So this strategy takes time. This is actually the results that we have achieved at Help Online for one of our Bulgarian clients who we've worked with for now over 2 years. This is an 18-month chart, and this is 18 months, it's a year and a half. They started with virtually zero organic search traffic, and today they're in the range of 5,000 visits from organic search per day. This strategy works, this strategy lasts, but you have to be willing to invest and to take a long-term view. Okay, I think now I've hopefully made the case for content marketing, why I think it's the future for online marketing. What I really want to take you through now is the process, how do you execute on the strategy, and what tools you can use to be the most successful with the strategy and drive productivity and drive results. The process can be generally broken down into a few major phases. You have a piece of content, that's the core. You have to plan for what kind of content you want to produce. You have to actually produce that content. You have to publish the content, then promote the content, and prove the content, looking at the results. And then this is a cycle that happens really in a short period of time. If you're going to be blogging once, twice, 3 times per week, you should be going through this cycle for every piece of content. So it's a very lean, it's a very agile process where it's iterative. Every time you go through this cycle, you should learn something that informs that next piece of content so you can do that next piece of content a little bit better. And if you go through this cycle very, very quickly, and there's documented learning every time you go through this loop, then imagine doing this over a year and producing 50 to 100 pieces of content. Where are you going to be 12 months from now? I think way ahead of your competition. Because probably they don't have a clue about this. So let's first talk about planning. That's the first step of this cycle, of this process. We put keywords at the core of the content marketing planning. Keyword analysis. So the first stop is Google Webmaster Tools. Does anybody use Google Webmaster Tools? Excellent. Are you familiar with search visibility? It's on the dashboard. Look at your search visibility. Look at the keywords that have impressions. And what I've done here is I've sorted by average position because Google is telling you on average, for this keyword, you're ranking in position 11. 11 is the top of page 2. So what does it take to get these keywords with high impressions and high search demand? What does it take to get them from the top of page 2 to the bottom of page 1? From position 11 to position 10? Probably not that much. Probably a couple of great pieces of content with anchor text links into that ranking page. That's the strategy. So, what else can we see here? This is just an example I've given. This data is readily available. So, I can see the number of impressions, and I'm getting a lot of impressions, which is how many times you're appearing in search results. This is search visibility. The next thing I want to know is, okay, is there an overall market demand or search demand for that keyword? So then I go to Google AdWords keyword tool, which is a public tool, and it's also part of Google AdWords. And I look it up. I can look at a keyword as a broad match, which means that it's going to catch all the related keywords. I can look at it as a phrase match, which means that it's part of a keyword phrase. And I can look at it as exact match, which is in brackets. And that's going to tell me exactly how many searches for this exact keyword are occurring in my market. In this case, this is Bulgaria. In my market every month. So Samsung, 27,000 searches for exact match brand name, 27,000 searches per month. That's huge. That's huge. I can also look at a longer-term view in Google Trends, which you can click to directly from here, from that drop-down, and I can see over the last 8 years what is the search demand for this keyword in my market. And I can also identify peaks and valleys, which help me to isolate things like seasonality. In this case, I don't really see seasonality with Samsung. What I can see generally is that they were pretty much asleep in Bulgaria for the years of 2009 to 2011, and they're starting to come back in a major way here. And that's going to keep going up, and I think we can see that actually all around. So this Google Trends gives you a great long-term picture, but it also gives you some other very interesting things. It gives you related keywords. So here I can see for Samsung, I can drill deeper into the products that people are looking for, and I can even see the regional interest by city, from the most popular city down. And these are the top 10 cities of people looking for Samsung on Google. And number 1 is not Sofia, it's Gabrovo. And missing from the top 10, surprisingly, is Varna, not there. Plovdiv, not there. Number 3, Haskovo. Surprising. So do you think Samsung should do something about this? Do you think they should? Does this correlate with their sales data? Sales in these cities? I bet you it does. Okay, we can even go deeper. We can use a tool called Uber Suggest right here. By the way, this little icon on all the slides is going to indicate the tool that was used for whatever slide we're on, so you can go back later and check it out. Uber Suggest takes the Google Suggest feature, which is when you start typing into Google, and Google suggests keywords based on most popular searches, and it puts it into an outline form like this. So I can start with Samsung, I can open that up, and I can drill into Samsung Galaxy, I can drill down into Samsung Galaxy S4, and then I can drill even further. I can see Samsung Galaxy S4, cena, price, review, video, Bulgaria, a review again. I can see unboxing. So do you think Samsung or somebody, one of you, should do a video about Samsung Galaxy S4 unboxing? Great. Tomislav, jump on it. That's great. People are looking for it. This is proof. Okay. Now let's shift to social, because we need some data about social. Are people talking about these keywords on social media? Are they sharing content around these keywords? So the tool here is called Topsy. Topsy is a social search engine. You plug in a keyword, and it returns back to you the results that show the most popular content in the recent period. It could be days, weeks, or the last 30 days. The most popular content in terms of social shares. And primarily we're talking about Twitter, tweets. So I put in Samsung Galaxy S4. I can't limit this to Bulgaria, unfortunately. But I saw that yesterday, Mashable published a huge article which got 486 shares. So this is maybe not the best example, but what I would think about doing is if you plug your keyword into this tool and you find people who have tweeted something that has been very popular about that keyword and has received a lot of shares, the next step is to click that little number there, and you can find out who are these people that shared it. It's going to tell you exactly all the users that share that piece of content, and you can even go further. You can isolate only the influential users, the power users. And here we go. These are 2 power users that shared that post from yesterday from Mashable. Here's Becky Cortino. If I have a piece of content that I'm planning about this keyword, and I can find people who yesterday or last week or last month shared something very similar, there's a good chance that they're going to share my content too. So I've got to find them, I've got to introduce myself, I've got to engage with these people, and then I can do outreach when my content is ready. We also want to see how many times is the keyword mentioned on Twitter. Just what is the volume of mentions? So Topsy also has a tool called Topsy Analytics. And what you can do here is you just plug in, you can just click through to this chart, and it shows you that actually daily mentions of Samsung Galaxy S4 is in the tens of thousands per day. So if I'm a chief listening officer of Samsung, I'm probably freaking out right now. I need a big team. I should watch every one of those mentions, because who knows what that is. I should watch that conversation like a hawk, and I should respond to those comments and those tweets as they come in. There's another tool that shows you the overall mentions of this keyword on the web. I mean the whole web. And this was just launched by SEO Moz about 2 months ago. It's called Fresh Web Explorer, and it's an amazing tool because underneath this chart, You've got a list of all the sites that are mentioning your keyword or your brand or your competitor's brand every day, and it gives you the last 30 days, the last 4 weeks of data. So you can reach out to those sites and you can say, hey, thanks for mentioning me. Would you mind actually turning that into a link? Let's get a link out of that. Okay, the last step of planning, and this is really, really important, is that we need to understand who are we writing for, who are we producing content for. We need to understand the customer persona. The customer persona is things like a typical profile of our customer. Who are they? What is a typical gender, demographics, age, job, but even more at a more deep level, what problems do these people have related to our product or service? What keeps them up at night? How can we solve these problems with content? Because that's what they're going to share, and that's what they're going to link to. And as we create content, you want to think about this grid. It's a persona grid, and what you have across the horizontal axis is you have 2 or 3 typical personas of your customer. And down the vertical axis, we have the conversion funnel, which is the sales funnel. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this concept. And every piece of content should be slotted into one of these boxes on the grid. So this is persona A, and he's a suspect. So he's very high up in the funnel. So we want to have a piece of content that will create awareness targeted at that persona for the purpose of driving him one step lower in the funnel to where he becomes a prospect and he becomes closer to the point of purchase or the point of conversion. I don't have a tool for that, by the way, but I think the concept is powerful. Okay, now it's time to produce. It's time to make something. It's time to create. I think the mindset has to be that we are a publisher. We're a newsroom. We're a magazine or a newspaper here. We have to have a system. We have to have a calendar. We have to have a process, organization. We have to have deadlines. We have to have people managing those deadlines. And there's a checklist of things that we want to be sure of, that we don't publish anything until it meets these requirements. Who are we writing for? Do we have a clearly identified customer persona? Are we providing a resource to our reader? Or are we evoking some type of emotion? Maybe we're just entertaining and being funny. That stuff is also very shareable. What keywords are we targeting? Remember, it still ties back to SEO, to rankings, and everything has to be keyword optimized. You should have a target keyword. What conversion page are we linking to? Is there a page ranking the top of page 2 for a big keyword? Are we linking to that page? Are we using the keyword as anchor text for that link? Do we have a great image? I mean, this is so important now for the web. You're going to capture someone's attention. They may not even read if there's not a great image that immediately just captures their attention in their eye. So you have to invest a lot of time in actually just choosing a really powerful image. Is it original? Has anyone written on this keyword before? Maybe they have. So is your content better? Or is it an updated version of that? It has to be the best. It can't be mediocre or average. Is it shareable? Would you share it with your friends? It's like the litmus test, even within our team. Would you share this with your own friends? And is it timely? Is it on time? Or is it the other variant, which is evergreen content? So there's a workflow within the process, within the overall content marketing process. There's a workflow for publishing. And I think it's something very similar to what happens inside of a newsroom or a magazine publishing house. You start with topic planning. There needs to be an approval from the client or from the decision maker there. Then there needs to be research around that topic, really great research. Then there needs to be a draft published. There needs to be some editorial process on that draft from an independent person. Then that article needs to be optimized with images, with internal and external links, with keywords. The title has to be really, really punchy. And then it's time to publish, and it's time to actually go live. We use, at Hub Online, we use a tool called Asana. And this is a project management tool. It's free for up to 30 users. It's extremely powerful. And what we've done here is we've actually mapped out our entire process from draft to editorial to approval to optimization to publishing as stages of this workflow. And we can literally drag and drop these titles. Every title is a piece of content here. We can drag and drop them down the workflow. So the project manager is responsible for the overall picture. And we have different people that get assigned these tasks as they go through the workflow. And inside of each task, which is a piece of content, We can have a conversation, we can attach documents, we can share this with our client, we can have tags, everything you can think of, it's here. No email, zero email. Inbox is your enemy here. It's also a great idea to have an editorial calendar, because an editorial calendar gives you a little bit more of a future view, 2, 3, 4 weeks out. And you should be actually having a strategy where you're planning content further into the future. And you can put those right onto the calendar. You can use Google Calendar here, it's just a perfect tool. Put those titles on the calendar so that people in the organization can see a little bit more of the long-term view. Okay, just check time here. Now I want to talk about repurposing content. So you've just published something, and now what you can do is you can turn that into, you can create different formats of that content. You can take that blog article and turn it into a video, publish it on YouTube. You can turn it into a slide presentation and publish it on SlideShare. And that gives that same piece of content second life on other properties where there are huge audiences. So think about how you can repurpose existing content also. Okay, now on to the next phase of content marketing, which is promotion. And here we're thinking really heavily that social media is the channel to promote content. The reason is that it's the efficiency about social media. We have so much data about people. Social networks like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter have done a lot of the heavy lifting for us. They have clustered people around common interests, and they've made them very easy to identify by us. So we're going to use social media as the main channel to distribute and promote the content. And I think that these 6 social media properties are the ones that have to be part of virtually every content marketing strategy. All these 6 are now too big to ignore. The only one that's a little bit marginal is Pinterest. If you don't have a product, if you have a service, maybe you can be without Pinterest. These are the nice-to-haves, the up-and-comings, or the ones that are like Flickr, maybe kind of on the downslope. But these are not all the nice-to-haves, but if you have more time and resources, you can also invest in creating audiences and communities on these smaller properties as well. So social media marketing comes down to 3 things, in my view. You follow people, you share stuff, and you have a conversation. You have conversations. You follow people so that you can grow your audience and you can connect with influential people. You share stuff so that you can position yourself as a market leader in your niche and you can gain influence. And you have a conversation so that you can build relationships. And now I'm going to present several tools within each of these 3 activities that we think make you very productive. The first tool is called Follower Wonk. Follower Wonk. Does anybody use it? Familiar with Follower Wonk? One of the key features of Follower Wonk is that it lets you search for keywords within people's bios on Twitter. So in this particular case, I searched for blogger, and I limited the results to Bulgaria, and I got 74 results. There's 74 bloggers identified by Twitter in Bulgaria, and nicely they've sorted that by the number of followers, and I can see a 19-year-old kid in Ruse with 63,000 followers. Who is this kid? Daniel Sharkov. I want to meet him. If I'm promoting something in Bulgaria, and he blogs about it, that's huge. He's a 19-year-old kid in Ruse. And let's work our way down the list. If we export this data, we're also going to get the websites and the blogs of these users. So let's visit those blogs, let's read their blog posts, let's make comments on their blog posts, let's get at them from lots of different angles, circle them on Google+, find them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, retweet them, multiple touch points, promote their stuff. They're going to know us, they're going to be very familiar with us, and then, when we have a piece of content, we ask them to help us share it, after we've done a lot of promotion for them. So Follower Wonk is an extremely valuable tool in the social media toolbox. The next concept is content curation. And this is about sharing. So what do you share? You share the stuff that you produce, but you also share stuff that other people produce. And this is really, we think of this as content curation. You have all this stream, this massive stream of content in your industry. And what you're doing is you're aggregating it, you're filtering it, and you're pulling out the best pieces of content for your audience, and you're resharing that content with editorial value add, like a comment or something interesting from the article that proves that you have an educated opinion about that article. This is going to naturally grow your audience, and it's going to position your brand as a market leader. And one of the decisions that you'll have to make in this process is what portion of my sharing should be owned content, which is what I produce, versus curated content, which is content that I curate from the web and I deliver to my audience as a service. Okay, now I want to talk about Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a dashboard that brings all this together. It's your command center. What you can do is pull in all of your activity into columns on Hootsuite. Who here is using Hootsuite, by the way? One? Okay. It's a must-have. You can schedule your posts on all of the different social networks. You can optimize the time at which those posts are published so that it correlates with the time that you're most likely to get shares and readership from that. And you can basically manage all your social media activity in one dashboard. It's an extremely powerful tool. Okay, now, I think in about 10 minutes that I have left, I want to talk about measurement. How do we prove with numbers, with analytics, how do we prove that this works? This is the conversion of the sales funnel. And we have a KPI report that we deliver every month for our clients. And it consists of 3 major areas of this conversion funnel. 3 stages. We have reach. And what we're looking at here is how many people are we touching with our branded content? How many people are exposed in some way to this content? How large is the social media audience? Is that audience growing? Are we getting search impressions from Google, reported by Google Webmaster Tools? Is our search visibility increasing? So this is reach. The next one is engagement. How many people are clicking on our content that we're sharing, both our owned content and our curated content? How many clicks? That's a signal of engagement. How many page views or how many people are reading our content? How many social shares are we getting on that content? These are signals of editorial endorsement that are very, very important. How many links are we getting? Earned links. What is the organic search traffic as a result of this? And are we getting social media referral visits? And finally, conversion, the ultimate measure of success. Are we getting conversions and through which channels? How many conversions are coming from organic search? How many are coming from social media referrals? How many are coming from direct visits, for example? And what is the return on investment? Which we'll get into a little bit later. So the key signals for editorial endorsement, which drives your rankings and your organic search traffic, are social shares and links. And I think social shares are definitely in that mix. This tool called Ahrefs gives you all the data that you'll need to understand the editorial endorsement that you're winning to every piece of content. So you have a list of URLs here. You can see the number of Google +1s, tweets, Facebook likes, Facebook shares. You can see how many referring domains are linking to you, not total links, but referring domains, which is more important. And even in the last 7 days and the last 30 days, this is a measure of freshness, how many referring domains have linked to that page, to that piece of content. And this is extremely, extremely valuable, and it's all brought together in one tool, Ahrefs. Google Analytics, who's using Google Analytics? Okay, more people, great. Organic search traffic, it's one of the most important things. It's kind of buried in the navigation, but organic search traffic should be increasing as you do this successfully. And you want to look at maybe 3 months versus the last 3 months, or if you're in a seasonal business, you might want to look at the period over that same period last year. And you want to identify the relative increase or decrease. Not only the visits, but bounce rate and average visit duration is also a sign that people are engaging with your content. Social referral traffic. So Google Analytics also shows you how many visits you're getting from social media referral traffic. And we should not expect always that this is traffic that will convert immediately from the visit, because remember, this is a lot of high funnel activity, this content marketing. But we want to think about this in terms of what is the contribution of that traffic, or is this traffic or these social media referral visits assisting conversions that happen later? And this is what we can see here, contributed social conversions. That means that this social media visit led to a conversion, but there were other touch points between the social media visit and the conversion. It might have been a pay-per-click ad, it might have been a direct visit, It could have been multiple things, but within the 30-day period, which is the length of the cookie, that social media visit was a contributor to a conversion. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is how do we define return on investment? To get a budget for content marketing in your company, you have to start with the case that this is going to be a positive return on investment within a reasonable period of time. How do you prove that? Most people think about it as what's going to be the revenue increase from this, month over month. I invest X, my revenue is Y, or it increases by Y%, and it's positive or negative ROI. I think this is the wrong way of thinking about ROI. What we need to think about is lifetime value. How much value has been created by this activity? How many first-time buyers did we bring in? How many first-time customers? What is the lifetime value based on the likelihood that that first-time buyer will buy again in the future? We have acquired a new customer, we've acquired a new lead. There's a projected lifetime value there. So how do we think about lifetime value? I'm going to use the example of an e-commerce site here. It's called cohort analysis. And what we do here is we identify the first visit. We identify when, not the first visit, but we identify when somebody made the first purchase or when they made the first conversion. And we expect that they're going to make future conversions or future purchases or transactions after that first purchase. And we want to measure that. We want to isolate those people into cohorts. And in this case, we're doing it weekly. And what we want to understand is, in week 1, if I acquired 100 new buyers, first-time buyers, I want to track their purchase activity in week 2, and in week 3, and in week 4. So that week 1 cohort gets measured week after week, and at some point, the cumulative revenue that is earned from that cohort exceeds the marketing investment that was made in that week to acquire those customers. And that's the point of break-even. And you can do a break-even analysis for every cohort, week after week, or maybe it's month after month, and you can see how many of my cohorts are negative, where my marketing cost still is higher than the cumulative revenue that that cohort has brought in, and which one of my cohorts here are positive, meaning that I've now earned more revenue from this cohort than the marketing expense that I made in the week that brought them in, that acquired those customers. And so lifetime value is best put into this type of context. Because then I can see, as I look at my marketing campaigns in these weeks, I can see whatever I was doing here, that didn't work. Don't do that anymore. Stuff that's in here, I have profitable cohorts. I have a string of very profitable cohorts. So whatever I was doing there, whatever type of content I was producing, any particular social media campaigns that I was running, maybe it was some paid advertising, that marketing mix here seemed to work pretty well. So you overlay your marketing activities with this cohort analysis, and you can figure out what's profitable and what's not profitable. So I'm going to end with a quote from Don Draper. And he says to Peggy, does anybody watch the show Mad Men? He says, you're not an artist, actually. You solve problems. And I think that as marketers, we're not artists, actually. Some of us would like to believe and think that we are artists. But what we really are, I think, is problem solvers. And if you can think of yourself more as a problem solver in the context of content marketing, if you can use content to solve people's problems, they're going to associate very positively with your brand. They're going to share that content. That content will work for you. It's going to drive results. So leave those tools in the toolbox, because the tools are essential to making you more productive, making you faster, and ultimately making you more successful with content marketing. Okay, that's it. Thanks.